Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Midweek message. You get the casual version of me today because I was out this morning golfing. So apologize for my appearance today. There's a concept in the church that often causes confusion. It goes by various names. Sometimes it's called formation, or spiritual formation, or discipleship, or growing in faith, and a host of other terms. All these terms are ways of talking about growing in one's faith, the process that's often called sanctification, which is a fancy way for saying becoming more holy. I think all these words are challenging because they're not clearly defined. We don't have a clear conception or vision of what it would mean for us to be more like Christ, or whatever term we choose to use. Sometimes I think the problem is that the words we use for spiritual growth are too broad. What does it even mean to say spiritual formation? Formed by what and into what? I think sometimes we need to put more flesh and bones on our terms so we can grasp what exactly we're talking about when we use terms like formation and discipleship. Other times, I think we struggle to be clear about discipleship or formation because it runs headlong into the currents of modern American life. Deep down, what most people seem to want is to be free from encumbrance and liberty to pursue our own identity, tied to another only as much as we choose. To say that we are disciples of anyone, even Jesus, can seem frightening because it means submitting to another's will and way while giving up control of our own lives, in which we have carefully cultivated our own identity and our independence, and we jealously protect them. I also think that we struggle with this whole idea because, quite frankly, it's hard. It's difficult because following Jesus and becoming more like him is not a clear-cut path. It's something we need to wrestle with over time by studying scriptures, listening and crying out to God in prayer, talking with others who are on the same path, and seeking to wholeheartedly follow Jesus. This means there's a lot of discernment in learning to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, because there is no set list of instructions, no to-do list, and it's not paint by numbers. Instead, it's a process of living faithfully day by day and asking God to teach us and show us how to live. This is hard work. In tension with the difficulty, though, is the fact that we often miss out on how following Jesus, discipleship, Christian formation, or whatever words we choose to use to capture this idea of growing spiritually to be more like Jesus, is to recognize that for real growth to happen, we must unleash our faith into all of life. We often think that faith is a compartment that we open on Sundays or when we're at church, and not something that spills over into our everyday lives. Perhaps there are a few questions we can begin to ask ourselves that might be a first step in discovering how our Christian faith can become more than a Sunday event. Perhaps we could start to ask ourselves on Sunday afternoon, how will my faith, my commitment to follow Jesus, shape the week ahead of me? Or we can learn how to ask ourselves at the end of each day, how did my commitment to follow Jesus change my actions and thoughts today? There are two more questions that are less regular, but perhaps most important. When we find ourselves in difficult or challenging situations, what if we stop to ask two related questions? First, how did God's presence in my life help or guide me as I faced something challenging? When we confront hard things in our lives, we can ask a second question. What might God be trying to teach me through these challenges? I don't think that learning to ask these questions is a magic solution to the question of discipleship, but I think they can help us begin to recognize both our need for God's presence in our lives and to see the times when God is at work in us day by day. Today's poem is a well-known sonnet by Gerard Manley Hopkins, where he speaks about the presence of Christ in many, often unexpected places in life. The poem is called As Kingfishers Catch Fire. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame. As tumbled over rim in roundy wells, stones ring, like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells. Selves goes itself, myself, it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. I say more, the just man justices, keeps grace, that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces. Today's prayer is from St. Francis of Assisi. Let's pray. I beg you, Lord, let the fiery, gentle power of your love take possession of my soul and snatch it away from everything under heaven, that I may die for love of your love, as you saw fit to die for love of mine. Everyone, I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I hope that I see you on Sunday morning. Remember, we worship at 9 o'clock and at 10:30. 10:30 Southridge, 9 o'clock is our traditional service, all right? Hope to see you this weekend, and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.